On Easter Monday, 1917, 4 Canadian divisions and 1 British division went over the top in a place called Vimy Ridge in Europe. It was a place where the French army had been attacking for years and had lost 100,000 men. As the French soldiers went out into the hell of no man's land, they were following a new set of guidance. They were told, if your lieutenant goes down, the sergeant will take over. If the sergeant goes down, the corporal will take over. And if the corporal goes down, you will take over. And the Canadians achieved, at the cost of 10,000 killed and wounded, in 4 days, they took Vimy Ridge from the Germans. There was an unprecedented amount of training that went on prior to this, and the individual soldiers were told a lot about the plan, because if we had to rely on the individual soldiers when all the leadership was dead to move forward toward the objective, they needed to know what the objectives were. And this was contrary to the normal practices of security, because if an individual soldier had been captured, then the Germans could extract the information of the plan. In a word, the Canadians were more agile. This is a true story, and it's one of the reasons I'm really excited to be here in Canada talking to Agile, because you have a rich history and a legacy of giving control. And that's what we're going to talk about today. This is going to be an interactive session. I'm going to tell my story on the submarine, and we're going to hear from you. If you have your phones, now's the time to take them out. I'm going to ask you some polling questions, and we're going to see what the group thinks. So you need to take your, if you want to participate, and I recommend we all do because it's more fun when more people participate. And then you just go to this URL. You don't need to download an app. You don't need to log in. There'll be a little login screen, but you can ignore that. And it says pollev.com/intent, because we call this intent-based leadership. Leaders give intent, not instructions, and the team gives their intentions back to the leader. And we'll bring up the first poll. And the first poll is, whence the gods of Wi-Fi? Oh, no. I've never had a setback like this before. No, of course, that's a lie. I'm going to tell you the poll. The question is, when we properly, all right, we're going to do this old school. We're going to just shout it out. Okay, here's the question. I want you to take 30 seconds at your table, and then we're just going to do some shout outs. Here's the question. When properly implemented, Agile results in people who are more blank. And we're looking for one word. 30 seconds, go. Talk at your tables, and then we'll talk together. That's 30 seconds just for me to buy time to try and fix this thing. Repeat the question. The question is, when properly implemented, Agile results in people who are more, okay? Looking for one word. Take 30 seconds. Okay, let's start over here. What do you guys come up with? Just let me hear some words. Engaged. Empowered. Responsible. Happy. Engaged. Good. Empowered again. Yeah. Empowered. All right. Good. Now, sorry. What's that? Open-minded. All right. Now, I've had a chance to ask executives the opposite question. I asked them, what do you wish your people were more blank? And this is what they say. This is over 1,000 senior executives, CEOs, and senior management, and they say they want their people to be more this. Sounds a lot like what you guys just said. So here's the second question. Again, and we're looking for a one-word answer. I'm going to give you 30 seconds at your table. If this is what Agile does, and this is what the senior executives want, why don't they embrace it more than they do? One word, 30 seconds at your tables, go. Okay, good. We're going to start over here this time. What do you got? Fear. 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 Yes. Yes. And when I ask executives, the question I ask them is, when you think about giving up control, what word comes to mind? And yes, fear is the biggest word. This is what they say. There is some relief, right? Olivier talked about that. And so I think this is, right, we know the problem, right? This is the problem. So we need to make it feel safe. We need to make these changes safe for the executives. Now again, like Olivier said, we didn't call it Agile. I wasn't that smart. But what we did on the submarine was Agile in a lot of ways when you look at the principles. And now that we go out and we talk to companies, we help companies basically give control to their people. That's what we call it. Give control to their people. We've learned basically 3 things that are really important about making this happen. So that's what I'm going to offer to you today as you go out there and try and implement these either from inside the company or as a coach or a consultant. Number 1, control by itself is not a program. Control always needs to be coupled with an improvement in competence and clarity. Otherwise, what happens is we go kind of straight up on this graph. Up at the top, we have the team has a lot of control. Boss has relinquished control. Down at the bottom, the boss has all the control, right? And over on the horizontal axis, we have the clarity and competence of the team. So when we want the team to make more decisions, we need to spend time with competence and clarity. And the executives need to see it, right? They need to see it. Number 2, it's small steps, very small steps. And this may be heresy, but I think if you go into a company and say, you know, it's a light switch, right? You're either not Agile or you are. That is very scary. And as soon as you can say, hey, look, we're going to take a series of small steps. We're going to get comfortable. We're going to do more. We're going to do more. We're going to do more. And I have a suggestion for how you might do that. It makes it feel better. And number 3 is you got to be visible. Visible is not, oh, look, we have our burn down chart posted on the wall, and there's a dashboard. If you type in this URL, Mr. Executive, you can find it. That is not visible. That is invisible. Invisible is like, hey, look, come look at our thing here. This is where we're at. And oh, by the way, this is where we're screwed up. All right, those are the 3 things. I grew up in Massachusetts. I was this geeky kid. I was on the math team, on the chess club. Do we have math team? We must have math team, right? Raise your hand if you're on the math team. It's dark. It's okay. And math team is super fun. You get on this little short bus. You go to another school. You have calculus problems. You see who can solve them faster. Yeah, I got a yes, right? That's good, right? Super fun. Anyway, America in the 70s when I grew up it was a depressing place. I was depressed. The whole country was depressed. You know, Canada was winning more gold medals in the Olympics than America. You know, 1/10 the population. The Iranians had taken hostages. The price of gas went up by 4 one day. You know, and then I was like, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to be a submarine captain. I'm going to kick the Soviets' ass, right? And I was the submarine captain, but by the time I got there, they saw it coming, and they were like, we're out of here. 17 years after graduating from the United States Naval Academy, I was told, I'm going to be the captain of this ship, the USS Olympia. It's an amazing warship, nuclear powered, makes its own oxygen, makes its own water. The reactor lasts 17 years. We got to come up every 90 days just for the food for the humans. Other than that, the ship could stay submerged for 17 years. And I was so excited. The Navy took me out of my job, and they put me to school for 12 months just to learn this ship. Now, I'd been a submarine officer. I'd been an engineer, a second in command, I'd been a junior, all in submarines, but that wasn't enough. I needed to know every single thing about the ship because I was going to practice what's called know-all, tell-all leadership. It's a very common form of leadership, and it comes from this definition. Here's my Naval Academy leadership definition. Leadership can be defined as directing the thoughts, plans and actions of others so as to obtain and command their obedience, confidence, or respect, and their loyal cooperation. It's obscene. And yet, I was a strong adherent to this. The whole generation of those executives might not have gone to the Naval Academy, but trust me, there's elements of this baked into what they believe leadership is about. Now, has anyone seen anyone direct the thoughts of people? Exactly. Darth Vader's the only guy I've seen do it. You're the first person to get the answer right. Yes, right. Exactly. We had a whole bunch of Darth Vaders out there. All right, the question here was supposed to be, and we'll just do this because this is going pretty fast. We'll just do, how would it feel to work in that environment? 30 seconds, and then we'll do the shout out thing again. Take 30 seconds. How would it feel to work in an environment where this was what your boss believed leadership was? Okay, time's up. We're going to start in the center this time. What do we got? State trooper. Yeah. State trooper, good. Oppressive, good. Fear, good. Pointless, yeah. Busy? Easy. That's very interesting. Why easy? Yeah, it's easy just to do what you're told. There's no responsibility. Yeah, I knew it was going to be a train wreck, but, you know. How many times in history have you heard that? I guarantee you when this Volkswagen thing comes out, there's going to be engineers that say, what are they going to say? I was just following my orders. Right. Volkswagen has a reputation for being a very top-down organization. And the guy Winterkorn, who was there, severance pay, $64 million. It's not bad for polluting the planet. I'm off on this Volkswagen thing because we just bought one of these cars 2 weeks before this thing came out for my wife. My wife, it was for my wife's car. And, I used to have this big Lexus, you know, and trees would fall over as I drove by. She's like, we got to get something environmentally friendly. She is so, she's very angry, yeah. Volkswagen is effed, I'm telling you right now. All right, anyway. Sorry about that. Going off track. Here's what, this is 20,000 people over the past year. I've asked this question, how would it feel to work? And this is what they say. And then we say, oh yeah, so we're going to do some leadership training, and we're going to give you a better way to control people's thoughts and tell people what to do. That's crazy. That's the problem. We got to figure out how to stop telling people what to do. And Agile is one of those things that's just so exciting. And you know, because of that, this is what it's like, right? These headlines come from the last 12 months. Now, maybe different in Canada. In the United States, it's pretty grim. And here's a real kick in the teeth. We're killing people. The bad stress at work, I'm not talking about like a forklift runs you over. I'm talking about heart disease, liver disease, obesity, diabetes. Chronic stress is causing 120,000 people a year to die. That means while we're sitting here during this 45-minute thing, 10 people are going to die. It's a tragedy. We're killing people. So when you figure out how to give control to your people, when you figure out how to properly implement Agile in an organization, not only are you doing all those other things we talked about, you're doing better software, better projects, happier people, all that stuff, they're healthier too. They're healthier too. I was about to take command of the USS Olympia out there in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and it was all stopped. There was another submarine, the USS Santa Fe. Now, during that 12 months of school, they would tell us a lot about how we should be, and every once in a while they'd say how not to be. And yes, they would show a picture of the USS Santa Fe. The Santa Fe was the worst performing, worst morale, worst retention submarine in the Navy. The Santa Fe, only 3 sailors from 135 re-enlisted in the Navy, of 35 who could. That was the worst in the Navy. Usually it's about half of them, like 15 to 18. The ship was getting the lowest scores on the inspections. They would go to sea, something would break, they'd have to come back in. And they'd say, oh, another submarine's got to cover for Santa Fe again. The captain of the Santa Fe was supposed to be there for another year, so it was kind of safe for us to, laugh and giggle and snicker at these poor bastards on the Santa Fe. But he surprised everybody, and he said, "No mas, I quit a year early." And now the Navy has a nuclear submarine with no captain. They look around. Now, I'm just 1 week away from taking command of the Olympia, and they say, "No. Marquet, Santa Fe." Now I was that poor bastard. The problem wasn't that the poor morale, and the problem wasn't the poor inspection scores. The problem was the Santa Fe was a different kind of submarine. The Santa Fe was one of the newest submarines in the fleet. The Santa Fe doesn't have sailplanes. She has bow planes, so the way she drives in the ocean is different. The Santa Fe has 12 Tomahawk missile tubes in the front that the Olympia didn't have. It didn't study that. The Santa Fe has a different reactor that lasts 33 years. And every piece of gear in the Santa Fe was different than it was on the Olympia. And going into combat is not really all that scary, to be honest with you, on a submarine. But this was scary. Because I always lived in that know all, tell all world. All of a sudden now, I know not. But still, tell all. Now here are the poor guys that worked on the ship at the time. Over here on the on your right are the officers. That group of khakis are the only guys who have college degrees. Then you have the blue shirts, the enlisted men who do all the work. And then the senior enlisted men are chiefs, and they're the khakis on the other side. About 135 guys. The average age is 26 years old. And they've been beaten up so bad. They were depressed. They were hanging their heads. They were zombies. And when I was told I got to go over to the Santa Fe, I went over there for the first day, and I tell you, it was just, you like walk down the airplane aisle and someone's coming the other way. You kind of got to bump into them. It's like on a submarine. They would just grunt and move on. I'm like, I'm the new boss. It was sad. Nevertheless, get dressed up in my white uniform, ready to inspire my troops. Let me take you down to the sonar room for a second. Now, in the movies, you hear this pinging under the ocean, right? Ping, ping, ping. We don't do any of this pinging. Yeah, I know. The movies they're not all true. Star Wars is about that. And so what we do is we just listen to the sound around us. We say, that sounds like a cruise ship, or that sounds like an distant oil well. That sounds like a school of shrimp. That sounds like an enemy submarine. You got to figure out what's what. It's important. And it's conveyed by those green lines that you see. And then you see all these buttons. Now, on the Olympia, I knew what every single button did. All throughout the ship, hundreds of pieces of equipment. I could literally reach over the shoulder of the sailor and say, no, you push that. It's like, move the mouse left. No, click. Close bracket. That's the extent of my coding. But on the Santa Fe, I'm in a dark spot. In the Santa Fe, I didn't know. I had this bad habit of asking the sailors to tell me about their gear. Now, the reason I would ask the question normally, because I know all the answers, and I was trying to catch them when they didn't know the answer, right? And on the Santa Fe, say, hey, tell me about your gear. Well, this does this, this is this, this is this. And they said, what about that? And the sailor, I forget. And I was thinking like, oh shit, I shouldn't have asked that, because I didn't know the answer either. And like the sailor would be cringing because they were expecting, well, I'll tell you. I was channeling Sean Connery there, Hunt for Red October. But I couldn't do that. And I was like, oh man, what do I do? I don't know either. I just said, I don't know. Now, I'd never seen a submarine captain say, I don't know. I said, I don't know. You're the captain. Yeah, I know. Hey, I have an idea. Let's press it and see what happens. We attacked a cruise ship. That's going to be reportable. No, that didn't happen. It was scary saying, I don't know. I think this is one of the most important things that any leader can say, I don't know, because it lets it be safe for everyone to say, I don't know. And it lets it be safe for them to ask you hard questions. So when we work with executives, we give them an exercise that they have to say, I don't know, every day. Now some guys say, I'll do that when I'm at home with my wife. I say, no, that's not a good idea. At work. But I always know. I don't care if you even know. Just say, I don't know. I don't know, let's find out. I don't know, let's run an experiment. I don't know, let's do an A/B test, whatever. Now, the next thing that happened was I gave an order that couldn't be performed on the ship. Essentially, what I did was the equivalent of ordering the ship to go into 5th gear on a car that only had 4 speeds. And the really scary thing was, it was actually just a suggestion to the officer of the deck, and he ordered it. And then when I asked him, hey, because what happened was the kid who was actually supposed to do it said, that doesn't work on this submarine. That's old submarines, Captain, because all the old submarines had 5 speeds and we went to 4 speed. We're simplifying equipment. And so I was like, yeah, good job, young man. Hey, Nav, did you know that? Yes, sir, I did. Riddle me this. Why did you order it? What did he say? You told me to, exactly. We train people to do what they're told and tell people what to do. When you do that and you're really good at it, what do we do with you? Exactly. We promote you. We make you the captain of a nuclear submarine. Exactly. This rocked me back on my heels. I had given bad orders before in my life. Not a lot, but a couple. And every time I had, where my brain went was, I have to give better orders. The problem is, I just gave a bad order. This time, my brain went, because there was no way I was going to learn the complexity of a nuclear submarine in any length of time that we were going to be safe. If I gave a good order, my crew was going to follow it, happiness and life. If I gave a bad order, they were going to follow it, death and unhappiness. That's motivation. So I say, stop. We were doing an exercise. I said, stop the exercise. Everyone come down. We got to talk about it. Finally, this one kid says, you know, Captain, I got the answer here. Oh, yeah, what? He's pointing at me. You got to be quiet. And I'm thinking, this kid has not seen too many submarine movies. That is not what submarine captains do. But I said, you know what? I think you're right. So how about we make a deal? I'm going to stop telling you guys what to do. I'm going to stop giving you orders. Okay. Has anyone seen that before? No. Anyone know how that'll work? Is it better than death? Yeah. Let's try it. And remember, my crew was beaten down, and when they came to work, all they wanted to do was not make a mistake. The best way not to make a mistake is do nothing, exactly. So any organization where the objective is to avoid errors, there's a bias towards inactivity. Now, it's going to be subtle, right? It'll be a chart that says, you know, the number of security violations, or days since the last accident, or you know, something. It maybe even be like the number of CS tickets that are coming inbound. But whatever it is, we measure problems. That's good for the statistics. It's bad for human beings. No human being says, yippee, I'm going to go to work today and screw up less than yesterday, right? That's not motivating for human beings. So we just said, look, say I intend to. Don't ask permission. Don't say, here's a problem. What do you want me to do? Just say, I intend to. I intend to submerge your ship. I intend to surface. I intend to load a torpedo. I intend to reposition over here. It was super awesome because they owned it. And now I tell you, initially there were some long moments of silence where I would walk into the control room and then we'd be driving this way and I'd be like, yeah, that's probably not right. And I'd want to say, right? And they'd be, and I'd be, hey, what are we trying to do here today? Well, blah, blah, blah. And where do you think we should be for that? And by the way, probably not the way you're going. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And then I'd have to leave. I'd go back to my stateroom. And I'd say, talk about it with it, and come back out. And I'd just say, well, so what do you guys think? What do you intend to do? There was a lot of that. But we got over that hurdle pretty quickly. And then they loved it. And they were just all, cascaded down through the organization. So the officers would send it to me, and the chiefs to the officers, and it was awesome. And the very next year, we were inspected by the Navy. Now this is the submarine we didn't fire any, it had worst scores. 12 months later, worst scores in the Navy. We got the highest score that the inspection team had records for in the history of the Navy. And everyone off the ship was like, oh, that Marquet fellow really must be smart. He's giving some pretty darn good orders. I didn't give it. No orders. But what we had done is gone from one order giver, one thinker, one leader, and 134 followers to 135 active, thinking, passionate, creative people. It was a tidal wave. I intend to. Hey, we get to blow stuff up every once in a while. The torpedoes are really something. Again, in the movie, they kind of go like this, hit the side of the ship, blow up. That's again, not really how they work. Here's what happens. The torpedo goes under the ship and detonates. Never touches the ship, actually. And you see that explosion in frames 2, 3, 4, and 5. But what we're really doing is blowing a hole in the ocean. And then the ship falls and breaks in half and falls in that hole. And that's what you see in frame 6. That's what sinks ships. So in the Navy, we call that a non-combat effective enemy vessel. They're not going to sink any bad guys. Or, I mean, good guys. They're the bad guys. So here we are. Here's a torpedo, this green thing. If you see it on the beach, don't touch it. Call the government. And it's a big deal. We're loading a torpedo here. We're loading a torpedo here. We're in Sasebo, Japan. Now, I had made a mistake by giving a lot of authority to the guys, and I didn't understand the connection with competence and clarity. And we had people making decisions about how to load, about how to line the system for loading torpedoes who weren't really ready to do that. And as we were setting up, we didn't have a torpedo staged, but we were just setting up, and we dropped this very heavy piece of metal. Fortunately, no one was underneath it, so no one was hurt. And I realized that what I had done was essentially gone too far in this direction. In other words, I'd given too much control without making sure competence and clarity. Because I was thinking, like, these are trained guys. They can do it. But the amount of training that you're going to do in the organization, the amount of conversations that you're going to have about what the purpose of the organization is, have to go up. And if that's not coupled with the adopting Agile, then it's not going to work. Support control with competence and clarity. Now here's a team that's going to be hard to control, right? Now, we do stuff with SEALs. SEALs are the Special Forces guys. We don't have them stay with us on the submarine because I have to work out 27 hours a day, and we don't have that much workout gear. So SEALs work in these teams of 12, sort of, generally. I'm being a little vague on purpose. And so what happens is when we want to do something with the SEALs, we get a message, we go someplace in the ocean where nobody is, we surface the ship, this helicopter comes, and you see those guys, they come roping down onto the submarine, and then we take them and we go do their sneaky thing. And we have to start a timer, though, to make sure that, because their bodies actually deteriorate when they're on the submarine because they're not getting all the workout time. Now, of course, the submarine, like the Navy's officially classified the submarine as a toxic environment for SEALs. But it's okay for me to live there for 6 months for some reason. This is what it looks like. This is the picture. I took this picture from the bridge. I was a little scared. Those helicopter blades are close, and they're noisy. You can't tell people what to do. If a rope flops in a direction, or the wind shifts, or a wave comes, they just need to know what to do. Now, before you get too worried, there is safety gear involved here. I was wearing a hard hat. I kind of had this thing going through my head. It's like, man, if that helicopter, if this thing goes south and that helicopter ends up running into the back of the sail there, this hard hat's not going to help me too. I pictured the Navy going to my wife and saying, well, here's his whole head. He was wearing his hard hat. Yeah, anyway. And so the other thing that happened was really interesting was the retention flipped. It was like a light switch. We went from 3 out of 35 guys the very next year, every single sailor, 100%. decided to stay in the Navy. Why? I would argue they were working harder. They had to think, they had to plan, they had to take responsibility for the decisions they made, but they loved it. People don't want, quote, easy, right? We talked about it. Just show up to work, do what you're told. It's easy. No one wants that. They want a job that matters and the ability to make decisions to influence something that has meaning. That was by accident, but we did all this. And I was a huge fan of Dr. Stephen Covey. I'd read 7 Habits. I was giving it to people. And I get a phone call. Stephen Covey wants to ride my submarine. Stephen Covey. He came out to Maui. We picked him up, Maui and the Hawaiian Islands. And it was this beautiful day, crystal clear. Submarine gets underway. And all day long, the officer's saying, I intend to, and everything else is happening. And finally, Dr. Covey comes to me and says, this is the most empowering workplace I've ever seen. So, well, thank you, sir. We don't use the word empowerment. I didn't like the word because it's just like fuzzy and ill-used. I like crisp, clearly defined words. I said, but for you can say it. That's okay. And then he said, I haven't seen you give any orders. I said, yeah, I'm out of the order giving business. And then he said, and I know how you're doing it. Now, I'm super intrigued because for us, it felt very chaotic. We tried something at work. We did, it was Agile. And we came up with this really quickly. When someone comes up to you with tell me what to do, and there's a lot of camouflage, tell me what to do. Like, hey, here's a problem, no solution. That's camouflage, tell me what to do. You don't tell them what to do. You say, well, what do you think? And, what would you do if I weren't here? And then you can see me like gradually go up the ladder. I intend to. Above that, I've done it. Hey, just do it and tell me you did it. Dr. Covey puts his head down. I think he's gotten seasick. Dr. Covey, are you okay, sir? Yeah, I'm fine, but I'm more of a 7 guy. So we need 7. So he added this one to make it 7. This is kind of how the CEO talks to the board, maybe. I think this is one of the most wonderful leadership hacks I've ever seen because it takes this fuzzy, 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 fuzzy thing called empowerment and lets you ramp it on the scale. Now, so here again, the technology is not going to work for us. So let me just give you this scenario. There's a significant UX issue with the project. The team can go in one of 2 directions. There's a project manager and there's a product owner. And I want you to imagine the conversation that this the product owner is going to have with the project manager. Okay, you see a little bit about him. The project manager is 56 years old, he's my age. He likes to be in control. He says words like, it's your product, make the call. And the product owner is maybe you. So the question is, when you think about that ladder, what words would you use when you go to talk to the project manager? So take 30 seconds at your tables, and we're going to do a really quick sort of oral poll again, and then we'll go on. Go. Okay, good. Let's start over here. Just give a shout out. Like, where would you be? I intend to. Okay, good. Anyone not? I brainwashed everybody. Like, I loved I intend to because there was communication. There was ownership in them, but there was still communication to me. What else? Does anyone like, hey, we made a decision and shipped it. It's done. It's uploaded. It's on the servers. Does anyone like that? Maybe. It depends, right? Anyone? How about lower? Was anyone to tell me what to do though? Hey, we got this problem. What should we do? Anyone? Yeah, no one would admit it in an Agile conference, right? But the point is, because it's very graduated, we can choose exactly the level of empowerment. And so when you're, whatever the conversation is, whether it's the team internally with maybe the tech lead or with the product owner, we don't need to just throw the switch and say, well, you used to make that decision, now I make the decision. Because that's going to be scary for people, both sides actually. And we can sort of, incrementally step up the ladder. So in shifting control, take small steps. I'm going to just give 1 point on language. Language is so important. On the submarine, we have to put out fires. We have some fire exits back here. You know how many fire exits on a submarine? 0. If you don't put out the fire, you die. Again, we call that motivation. And we were not very good on the Santa Fe when we first got there. It was, you know, you're supposed to get the hose there in 2 minutes. It'd be 2 minutes, 2:15, 2:30, 2:45. And then we'd have this conversation, what you guys, retrospective, right? And they said, well, what happened? Well, they did this, and they did that, and they didn't do that. And there was all this they. And I said, well, who's this they? Well, you know, they. You. I got pissed off one day. I said, there's no they on Santa Fe. It rhymed, so they remembered it. And I said, look, let's do this. Let's use the word we. So the next day, the engineer comes to me. He says, hey, bad news. The pump repair will be delayed because he's trying to say they, the supply department, ordered the wrong part. He says, we ordered the wrong part. It was awesome. And what happened was really interesting. First, nothing. But then pretty much everyone started saying we. And we had another inspection. This was before the other one. And the inspector said, this submarine feels like the most team-like, the most collaborative of any I've ever seen by far. You have a culture of teamwork. And I said, no, we don't have a culture. We have a rule that we use the word we. And what had happened was by saying we had rewired our brains. We think of we as our team. And most people do it the other way around. Say, oh, think of all these people as your team, and then maybe we'll say we. No, that's the wrong way to do it. You act your way to new thinking. So let's practice the behavior of a team, one of which is we call each other we, and then we feel like a team. The action precedes the thinking. We act our way to new thinking, not think our way to new action. Hey, and you might be a great leader, but then when we put you under stress, fatigue, time pressure, or when we put the fear of God in you, it will always push you down the ladder. It's like, yeah, just do this. And we see this now. We see it on my team. And finally, you got to make it visible. Companies are putting things like this up, and so people are sort of showing where they are. And when the boss comes down and tells them what to do, they take the boss's little name tag and go, wah. Right? Always be visible. All right, I got a very short video. The cool thing is we can train our brains about what it feels like to give up control. So this is something that we do with executives. The guy I'm standing next to in this video is the guy who founded Geek Squad, and then he sold it to Best Buy. I'm here with my friend Robert Stevens, founder of Geek Squad. We're talking about ways of giving up control, and he has a tip. We just came out of this restaurant, nice Italian restaurant for lunch. He's got a tip for how to give up control in a fun way. Robert.
Yeah, good tip in 2 parts.
2-part tip.
You practice every day. You go to the restaurant and you tell the waiter, you pick, all right? You pick the drinks, you pick the meal, and don't play it safe. That's the key.
I love the don't play it safe part. So, next time you go out to lunch, let the waiter pick and add this, don't play it safe. So I take my CEOs out to lunch and I have them do that. I was like, I just can't do it. Well, then you're not going to be able to give up control at work. We call these nudges. If you're interested in enrolling in our nudge sequence, send the email to nudge@turnthe-ship-around. If you're interested in information on moving your organization up the ladder, say intent. And my email is just, you see the code here, david@turnthe-ship-around. Unfortunately, I have to bail out pretty much as soon as we're done. But send me your stories. Let me know how it goes. I'm writing another book about companies and organizations and people who are doing amazing things by giving up control. So wrap up. We support control with competence and clarity. Good. Take small steps and always be visible. All right. So we end up winning all these awards, and it's not about, it's really not about that. What happened was I went and worked at the Pentagon. It was a toxic place for me. My body started falling apart. I was almost one of those 120,000 people. My wife was like, what's happening? Well, you're killing yourself. I'm like, no, I'm going to run the Navy someday. Yeah, maybe not. I got a physical. I was discharged from the Navy with disabilities in 6 different categories. I was 90% disabled. I was denied life insurance. My life expectancy was 7 years. Now, I just want to tell you, I am getting better, and that was 7 years and 3 weeks ago, and you can believe me, I had a huge party. Thanks. So this for me is personal. This for me is personal, and when I had those dark times, I was thinking about all the stuff that I'd done, and my flat screen TV and my Volkswagen and all. None of that. I didn't give a crap about that stuff. What for me and why I wrote the book was it was about the people that I thought about who then came back to me and said, "We've achieved so much because you believed in us." It's about being significant, not being, quote, successful. And if in the hell of World War I, Canadians, soldiers, could figure out how to give control, then I think we can too. Thank you very much. You guys have been great.